Welcome to the Press Box, everybody. New edition, Zack Miller, Mark Haskell here. And we finally have local stuff to talk about now that the rain has finally gone away for a long enough period of time.
Oh, don't worry, it'll be back tomorrow, though.
That's okay.
Yeah.
If it's back for one day a week, and postpone some stuff, that's a normal spring in Maine. But
Fair.
Those first couple weeks where we were dealing with postponements every day.
Ridiculous.
I've never seen that before. Unbelievable.
Unreal.
But anyway, we've hit some games between tennis and lacrosse and baseball and softball. About halfway through the seasons. Tennis seasons are actually winding down. They have about a week and a half left until they're in playoff mode already. That season, I think, is the fastest out of any.
Yeah, tennis season goes really quickly,
sports.
for sure. And then before you know it, we've got the all the state single qualifiers. A lot of the best players in the area will go and see if they can get into the round of 48, which that'll be coming up at the end of the month as well. But actually, I just hit the Madomic and Oceanside boys tennis games yesterday, and I think that was a 4-1 win for Madomic. I think Oceanside, it was at Rockland. I think Oceanside's only win on the day was Abe Lamole at first singles. He's definitely one of those kids that's going to be probably making a run in the round of 48.
Him and his brother.
Yeah, right. His brother is the first singles tennis player over at Camden Hills, which is kind of an interesting little subplot. And those two teams play each other at the very end of the regular season. We'd like to think that those two guys will definitely play against each other, but you never know at that point in the season. Playoff seeds may be locked up. They might be resting guys. So maybe Abe doesn't play for Oceanside, or maybe what's
Ezra? I think it's Ezra.
Ezra, right? How do I forget a name like Ezra? Ezra Lamole. He may not be playing for Camden at that point because obviously Camden boys tennis very, very strong. Oceanside, they're 1-6 right now. Madomic Valley boys, they're 3-3. But yeah, it was a nice day for tennis yesterday. Not lots of sun in the sky, just a little wind cutting through it. But yeah, it was good tennis overall. A lot of well played matches up and down the ladder. What about you? What did you hit yesterday?
I was at Madomic and Belfast baseball softball, and going in, you think, oh, it's gonna be a good matchup. The baseball game was actually both games were actually lopsided. For softball, Madomic has always been a powerhouse, and Belfast is they've kind of been middle of the pack, and that's where that's where they are this year. Madomic's offense was just a little bit too much for Belfast to handle on the softball side yesterday. They were up 4 or 5-0 in the first couple innings, and by then they won 10-1, I think, in a 7-inning game. They didn't actually get the mercy because it's 12 runs in softball, right?
And 12 runs after 5 for softball.
And then in baseball, Ryan Creamer was on the mound for Madomic Valley, and he just kind of held Belfast steady. Belfast had a good opportunity in I think it was the 4th inning. They had runners on 2nd and 3rd, but Creamer struck out the side and got out of the inning.
Those are two really good baseball
teams.
They are
really
good. Because Madomic won that game 5-0, but both teams had 5 hits.
Yeah.
So it's not like Madomic dominated them, even though they did win 5-zip. That's a team. If those two teams meet in the playoffs, if Belfast won that game, wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. Madomic won it, wouldn't surprise me. I think those are two pretty evenly matched teams.
And they do play again, I think, the next week or week and a half when Madomic has to go to Belfast. So we'll see if they can if the Lions can flip the script and beat the Panthers on their home field. And like you said, there's only 10 hits between the two teams. Both teams had 5 hits, so timely hitting on Madomic's part, but not so timely on Belfast's part. Madomic is sitting pretty right now. I think they're 4th or 5th in Class B North. Belfast is, I think, 8th or 9th or 10th, and somewhere in that range.
I think they're 9th.
They're 5-2, and Madomic is 6-1 right now.
Right.
So they're the two top teams from the Midcoast in Class B. Class A, Camden Hills, they're at the bottom. They're like 2-6. They lost to Bangor yesterday. And then Oceanside lost in 8 innings to Lincoln Academy yesterday in a slugfest. It was like 11-9.
They were a pair of 1-win teams. Yep. Both teams really, really kind of needed that. And actually, it was in 8 innings that baseball game, and it was Sullivan Fink for Lincoln Academy who had an RBI single. He came around and scored on an error, and those were the 2 runs in the 8th that were kind of with a difference.
Yep.
But obviously, Oceanside, they've got a lot of life. They've been playing, as well as they can play. Considering they've lost a lot of kids to graduation. They were right there. They were right there at the end.
They beat Mountview for their first win last week.
That was a 10-2 win. I believe it was earlier this week or late last week. I can't remember. The days are all starting to run together.
And then in D South, we have Searsport, who's sitting atop the standings at 5-0. It looks like they, if once it will end at the end of this month, I think Searsport, you can probably just pencil them in for another state championship game if they play it.
Or at the very least, a
regional championship game, unless they, obviously injuries happen, things that you can't foresee happen, and then we have Vinyl Haven, North Haven, who I think they've only played like 2 or 3 games so far, because their schedule is very
Yeah,
very different.
they
on
have
the
a lot of
island.
situations where they have to play double headers and
Yep.
things like that. So like they'll, the heel points will be like, oh, they're 0-2, and then all of a sudden they'll play like 6 games in 4 days.
Yeah, exactly.
That happens a lot out there because I mean that's just kind of like getting on and off the island. You got to get out there and play double headers or host people for double headers, and that's just kind of the way they go about their business. But the one team that you didn't mention was the Oceanside softball team. Chloe Jones with another no-hitter yesterday. They beat Lincoln Academy 6-0. What's interesting about the Oceanside softball team is got word that Rusty Worcester is going to be away from the team. The Oceanside softball coach is going to be away from the team for a few days. He's got some personal family matters to deal with. So that means that his assistant coach, Rachel Campbell, I almost called her Rachel Campbell, Rachel Burns, because she's formerly Rachel Campbell, she's going to be coaching the team for the next few days. Interesting nugget about that. Rachel is
Pregnant.
9 months pregnant, and her due date is May 12th, and today is May 9th.
As we like to say, she's ready to pop.
She is ready to pop, and they're going up to Herman today, and that's going to be a very stressful game. Herman 7-1, Oceanside 8-1. That game's going to be for a lot of heel points. A lot of pressure on Rachel.
At least they're close to a hospital, though, in case
just,
something happens.
I just hope to God that her water breaks sometime during that game. Would that be like the best story
That'd be
ever?
a cool story.
That'd be amazing. I'm
Probably,
sorry, Rachel.
we wouldn't be there, though.
I'm sorry that I'm rooting for that, but I'm definitely rooting for that. I really want that to happen. Think about the great story it'll be for later.
Babies always seem to come at the most inopportune time as well.
Yes, they do have a way of doing that for sure. But let's turn the page really quickly. We've got one team on to the Eastern Conference Finals and one team that is not. So
let's start with a team that's not.
Let's do that.
Going.
Let's do that. So obviously the Celtics lose in 5 games to the Bucks. That was I can't remember what the final score was, but I think it was like 116-91.
Yeah.
Yep.
They got manhandled in that game.
They did, and it was interesting too. That my prediction held up. I said Bucks in 5, but I really kind of thought that the Celtics would get a win at home. But it's kind of interesting the way it played out. I mean, the Celtics, they won their first 5 games of the playoffs, sweeping the Pacers and then winning game 1, then lose their last 4, and just like that, they're gone.
Yep, they're gone. And last night's game, I watched the game, and I was just watching the first team of Horford and Kyrie, Jaylen Brown, and whatever combination of players that Brad Stevens decided to throw out there. And obviously Kyrie sucked pond water for the past 3 or 4 games.
15 points in yesterday's game. Not really enough for the team leader if we're going to get to a game 6.
He was 6 for 21 and 1 for 7 from 3 in the game last night. But for the past 3 games, he was 25 for 81 from the floor. It's just awful.
Yeah.
To be you're supposed to be the star player of the team, and he doesn't come up clutch in the playoffs. I think he was looking ahead. I honestly think he was looking ahead, and I don't think he'll be back in Boston next year.
I kind of hope he's not. I mean, he's such a talented player, so it's not like you want the talent to go away, but I just feel like this team really lacked a lot of flow. I mean, like if you look at last year's team, obviously they didn't have Hayward and they didn't have Kyrie. And
but that was maybe the best thing for that team.
It was, because you had all these younger players. They're playing for each other, and they're playing out of their shoes, and you're having these great series. And then all of a sudden, Kyrie comes back, and it's like, okay, well, it's hero ball time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're going to defer to one guy all the time. And I don't think that style of play favors the Celtics, the way the roster is currently put together. Now, if they keep Kyrie and trade for Anthony Davis in the offseason, which is very much in play, maybe things are different. Maybe things are different for sure. But I think this roster is going to look very, very different next year.
Yeah, you have Kyrie, you had Gordon Hayward, you had Jaylen Brown, Al Horford. You have all these big, stars, Jason Tatum. And these guys that want to shoot the ball, that's what they do. They like to shoot the ball. And we've, throughout the season, we've already documented how their cohesiveness and camaraderie wasn't exactly there like it was last year with the injuries to Kyrie and Gordon Hayward. Last night was really telling when the Celtics would come up the floor and then just jack up a 3 or make one pass.
Yeah.
And then it was absolutely nothing. I think in the second quarter they went through a stretch of almost 7 minutes for like the second time in the series or in the playoffs. I can't remember which. That they didn't score. They had like 39 points at halftime. It's like that's not a Celtic team with all the star power on it. It just doesn't.
And this was,
right.
like I said 2 weeks ago when I picked the Bucks in 5. I mean, this is a seasoned Milwaukee team. They made it to the first round last year. Lost to the Celtics. They're a year older. They're a year wiser. They got better. You know what I mean? And and it's weird. You look at the Celtics. They get Hayward and Irving back on the floor, but I feel like they didn't get better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that last year's team was a better team. 1 through 12. But they just played harder and they had more heart. than this team did. You know, and Giannis, he almost went for a triple-double last night. He had 28 and 8, 7 bucks in double figures, and they were 15 of 47 from beyond the arc. Now, Milwaukee, they made 13 more shots yesterday than Boston made. 8 of those were threes. Boston was 7 of 39 from beyond the arc. So, I mean, you know, and it's weird, like, you know, like, three-pointers aren't necessarily a huge part of Milwaukee's game. I mean, you look at their stat sheet. I think George Hill had 3, and he led, you know, and they made 15, and he led the team with 3. Like, you know, a couple people had 2, a couple people had 1. So everybody was just hitting shots from beyond the arc last night. But, you know, everybody but the Celtics, obviously.
Yeah, the Celtics could hit water again if they fell out of a boat. And now the big question turns to, you know, who are they going to keep? Horford, Irving, and Aaron Baines all become unrestricted free agents, and Terry Rozier becomes a restricted free agent. I think Irving's gone. Irving and Horford, they both have player options.
Yep.
I think Horford's is like $30.5 million, so I don't know if the Celtics will pick that up or not. But I think Irving was going to wind up signing with like the Knicks or somebody like that. I think Horford, they'll re-sign Horford, I believe so, because Horford he always seems like he wants to be in Boston.
Yep.
Plus he's on the back end of his career, so you know you don't want to be jumping around.
I think
with
he's
teams
comfortable
either.
where he is right now.
And I think the Celtics re-signed Aaron Baines. He came back for, I think it was a 1 or 2 year deal, and I don't know if he'll be back next year. Obviously, I have no inside knowledge because we're up here.
You don't have any inside knowledge?
No.
Jeez, what the hell?
None that you know of.
Well, no, so I'm not a huge fan of Kyrie, but if we can make the trade for Anthony Davis, I think you do it and you hold on to Kyrie. If you can get those two together, I mean, everybody's saying like, you know, maybe he's going to go to the Knicks and he's going to team up with Zion and maybe Durant goes to New York. But, you know, I think if the Celtics want to be good for the next few years, you look at the way the East is constructed. You've got a big guy like Giannis in Milwaukee. You've got Embiid in Philly. You need a big man, and Aaron Baines and Al Horford are not enough.
No.
You know, you've got to have a big guy down there in the paint. You know, and that was definitely the thing that the Celtics lacked this year, was a strong interior presence.
Yep.
And if you get Anthony Davis, he's like a top 2, top 3 player in the league. And if you compare him with Irving, then maybe you get like a good free agent to come in here, and then you've got another big 3 kind of situation. And I say this letting everybody fully know, like, I love Tatum and I love Brown. I don't want them to go. But I just don't see how you bring in an Anthony Davis without parting with both of those guys and draft picks. And you're probably going to have to part with Gordon Hayward too, because his contract is big, and to make the contract work, you know, with Davis making as much as he's making. But, you know, If we can make the trade for Anthony Davis, I'm all for Kyrie staying. If they can't, I want him out.
Yeah, I was going to say that you hit the nail on the head. What I was going to say about the Celtics needing a paint presence, because they barely went to the free throw line at all during the Celtics the Bucks series.
Manhandling
guys. And Giannis is Giannis. I mean, he's one of the best players.
He's
in
probably
the league,
going to be
if
the MVP
not
of the league.
Best player in the league.
Yeah.
He can shoot. He can dunk. He's got those long, lanky arms. There. Last night during the broadcast, they were comparing him to Dr. Dre, and it's just like, yeah, and that's exactly who he looks like, but just more athletic. So,
R.I.P.
we'll
to the Boston
happens.
Celtics. They're done for this year. We'll be talking a lot about them, I'm sure, in the coming week. We'll get the draft lottery is going to be coming up, so we'll see all that's going. But let's talk about a team that actually did make the Eastern Conference Finals, the Boston Bruins, with a 3-0 win in Game 6 over the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Which you also predicted.
Which I did. It's crazy. Both my predictions came true. That means both of yours did not.
Yeah.
So no matter what, you have to pick the Carolina Hurricanes in this series.
So we'll pick the Hurricanes.
So we're on to face the Carolina Hurricanes, another upstart team that really, in a lot of ways, doesn't really belong here. You look at the Final Four teams. We've got the Bruins and the Hurricanes, and then you've got the Sharks and the Blues in the West. Boston has home ice the rest of the way. For as long as if they make it to the Stanley Cup, they've got home ice there. They've got home ice here. You know, I think they're the best team left.
They easily are the best team left. And we've talked about when Columbus swept Tampa Bay in the first round. We talked about that layoff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Carolina swept the Islanders in the second round, 4-0, and they haven't played a game since last Friday.
Right.
So it's almost a week layoff, whereas the Bruins are coming off 2 days. They're still, ready to
Which
go.
is interesting because that's exactly what happened in the previous series.
Exactly.
You know, Columbus was sitting around after they had swept Tampa, and Boston went to 7 with Toronto, and they maybe kind of caught them a little flat-footed. Same thing could be happening here. Of course, the interesting thing for Boston is they're going to be without Charlie McAvoy tonight, who was suspended for his hit in Game 6 against the Blue Jackets. What'd you think of that hit?
I can see why it's justified, but at the same time, he got a lot of body in it. It wasn't. He wasn't. I don't think he was headhunting. I just think that's just the way he hit him.
I don't think it was malicious, but I think when you look at it, I think the NHL, you have to make a call.
Yeah,
you have to make a call. You can't let it go unpunished. And it'd have been one thing if he'd got like a 5-minute major. You can be like, well, we gave him a 5-minute major, but you can't give him a 2-minute minor for that and then not punish him later on. You know what I mean? So like, I didn't have a huge problem with the hit, but I thought the 1-game suspension was justified.
Yeah,
I'm fine with it.
I think
So Carolina better win tonight.
Yeah, that might be a problem. That's what I was going to say. It might be a problem for the Bruins defense having Carolina because their offense is pretty good. They've what was I going to say? They've scored 2.69 goals throughout the playoffs in 11 games. They've given up 2.27 at the same time. So their goalie, they play 2 goalies sometimes, and I think that playing 2 goalies because you can never really get in a rhythm as a goalie if you're not going to keep playing like Rask. Rask in the 3 games that the Bruins won over the Blue Jackets played outstanding in those games.
Yeah,
he really lived up to
he had 39 saves in Game 6, and but to be fair, Columbus, they hit a lot of posts.
Yeah, they did.
They did. They hit a lot of posts. I mean, we could be talking about a Game 7 right now if a couple of those just go a quarter inch the other way.
Yeah, but they didn't. I mean?
But they didn't. So we're going on. We're going on to the Eastern Conference Finals. So all right. So I mean, Game 1 is tonight. We're shooting this on Thursday. What do you got?
I think I'm going to pick Carolina just for the sake of keeping that alive. So the Bruins will win and go on to the Stanley Cup Finals, which would be nice.
Yep.
Don't tell the universe this, but I think the Bruins will actually win in probably 6 or 7 games.
Dude, why did you say that out loud?
I think Carolina's going to win.
It was implied. You didn't have to say it out loud.
Yeah, but I
was going to pick the Bruins in 6.
Pick. It doesn't really matter.
I'm picking the Bruins in 6. That's my
I think the Bruins will win in 6 too. Yep. I think the Bruins will drop one at home. At least one.
Maybe even tonight.
Yeah, maybe tonight
with them being without McAvoy.
I don't think they'll win. They'll lose tonight on Thursday, just because of that layover for Carolina and the Bruins played 2 days ago. They're just going to they're in emotion now. They're just going to keep going. Yep. But I think Carolina will get 1 in Boston. But I also think the Bruins will get 1 in Carolina too.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
It'll even itself out.
Yep.
Here's before we end real quick. So this is the first time the Bruins have been in the Eastern Conference Finals since 2013.
When they went to the Cup and lost to Chicago.
This is Boston's 28th appearance in a conference final in the 4 major sports since 2001. That's amazing.
That's unbelievable.
How spoiled are we? The next closest team is Los Angeles, and they have 19.
Same time frame. That's ridiculous. But think about how much better it would be if the Patriots just hadn't won any. Wouldn't you feel a lot less bad?
No. I wouldn't.
On that note, we'll talk to everybody next week. We'll talk about we'll probably be in Game 3 or Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals. We'll talk some more hockey and
tennis will be almost done.
And we'll be talking some more local stuff as well. So things are really heating up here as the rain goes away and May is here to stay. So I'm Mark. This is Zach. This has been the Press Box.